Today, we're going to talk about the Game Boy Micro. Hello and welcome back to the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Jim.
I'm Bob.
And today we're going to talk about the Game Boy Micro. Just some factoids about the Game Boy Micro. It was released on September 19th in 2005 for a retail price of about $99. Overall, it sold about 2.5 million units. And right now on the video game pricing charts, it goes for, like, at least the model I have here, about $105. Though the condition of the two that I've got here, probably bring a little bit less than that, probably closer in the $80 range. But the story about these is that I actually bought these at a yard sale, the pair of them together, and one was working, one was not working. I did have to order a charger for the one, but the crazy thing about it is, even without a charger, I only paid 50 cents a piece for these.
That is a hell of a deal.
So yeah, I got two of them, 50 cents a piece. The Game Boy Micro, just a kind of a quick overview of it, doesn't have a whole lot of stuff on it. I mean, it's got a cartridge slot on the bottom so that you can play your Game Boy Advance games.
And only Game Boy Advance games,
yes,
just to be clear?
Yes, okay. So I just to show that, I do have one of my 5 copies of Tetris that I found. It will not fit in there, so
okay.
You cannot play anything besides the Game Boy Advance games. In this blue cartridge here, this is a reproduction of Metroid Fusion. At the time I bought this in Metroid Zero Mission, which is a redone version of Metroid 2 for the Game Boy.
Okay.
Because Metroid 2 didn't have a map system, so it was a pain in the, It's why I've never actually beat the original Metroid, because it didn't have a map to it. So Metroid Zero Mission actually puts a map into Metroid 2.
Okay.
But this is Metroid Fusion, which is honestly my second favorite Metroid game. Super Metroid's my favorite, but this is a very close second. But enough rambling with that. I hope I put the game in the right way. But besides that, you've got a headphone port on the bottom, volume switch on one side, a charging port up on top, and nothing on this side, and your on-off switch on the other side on the bottom here. So headphone on this side, on-off switch on that side. Like I said, it only plays Game Boy Advance games. And the idea is that obviously this is something small you can put in your pocket. It did have some customization where you could change the face plates out on them. Some of the editions were just different colors. They did have a Famicom edition, which was gold and red. So that was kind of cool. This is unfortunately the least valuable model that they own, or that they put out.
And so when you say that about the Famicom edition, you mean it's an American version
of the
loosely looking like the Famicom, and
yes.
not the Japanese version of this product.
Yeah, no, it was released in the United States, but it was the Famicom colors. Now, obviously, it's nice because it could easily fit in a pocket. It's rechargeable, so you don't have batteries to mess with. And from what I gather, the battery life's pretty decent, because I've had these sitting in on a shelf for about, 2-3 months after I charged them, and they will still power on.
If I may interject, I haven't charged my Nintendo DS in like 3 years, and it still has the correct time and powers right up, and it still says it's at full power. So, like, whatever Nintendo used to do, like, they knew what they were doing.
So, as you can see, I mean, it does have it may be hard to see, and we'll get some close-up shots of it, but it does have a backlit screen on them, so that you can actually, see that, which is a definite advantage over the original Game Boy Advance. But as here, you can actually see kind of the size comparison between the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Micro. The Game Boy Advance, like I said, does not have a backlit screen, so even trying to see this thing and play it you have to have the right set of lights. Honestly, I understand why people mod these, all over the place, because it's a little bit better to, definitely better to see. And then, the little bit more advanced, Game Boy Advance SP. Again, you can see kind of the size difference, and we'll get some close-ups so you can actually see the size difference between these two on that. But
I do have a question when you get to a good stopping point, Jim.
so one of the negative things about all of these is that while all of these consoles here are Game Boy Advances, these two at least play the original Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games, while the Game Boy Micro doesn't. The one thing that kind of stinks about this is that they all have proprietary chargers. Well, this one has no charger. This just runs on AA's, which, just like most Game Boy Advances, like in the original ones, the battery pack cover's missing on that one. But these both have proprietary charging, and the other one, did I leave that? Where did I set that? There it is. Yeah, like I say, the Game Boy Micro only has the charging port and doesn't work with any accessories. So, such as the wireless adapter that can go on the Game Boy Advanced SP or the regular Game Boy Advance. None of those accessories will work on this. The only thing it does is it just plays Game Boy Advance games, and that's about it on that. And obviously some of the downsides with this is, besides it being super small, it's super hard to see. I mean, maybe it's just me being 41 and trying to look at the screen, but it's very small, very if you have unless you're a child,
my hands would cramp very quickly trying to play this.
And the one of them I had to fix. I had to put a new battery pack in it. Even with that, like half the switches didn't work on it. Like I had to go in and clean the switches and all that. Like they got gummed up and everything. So, again, with 2.5 million units sold, again, this was considered a commercial failure. But
well, can you give us a comparison number to something else on that?
I would have to look it up, because I'd have to see what the original Game Boy Advance sold, and I know it sold considerably better than that. But what was your question that you had?
Okay, so since I don't have my DS right in front of me, the Super Nintendo has 4 buttons instead of the 2. And a lot of Game Boy Advance games are ports of Super Nintendo games. How do they make that work?
I don't know. I mean, the fact that it does have shoulder buttons, but that's the same thing with all of them. All of them have.
Yeah, that's as I thought of the question, I began to wonder, does my DS have 4 buttons or does it have 2? And I don't know right off the top of my head.
The Game Boy Advance, as of actually it says December 31st, 2015, had shipped 43.57 million units.
Yeah, well, that would be a considerable difference then.
So versus the 2 million there. And I mean, a lot of people liked them, but they're more of a novelty than a convenient way of playing games. So would I say buy one of these to go off and have it as an easy way to play games? Not for an adult, maybe for a child, but then again, their value kind of makes them something you don't want to just hand to a kid to play with.
Right.
Though I do still prefer playing that over my original Game Boy Advance that I have, because of it not having a backlit. But if I had a choice between the Game Boy Micro, the original Game Boy Advance, and the...
Yeah, I hate to interrupt you, but this is why I never noticed, because the DS has 4 buttons.
Yeah. But if I had a choice between the Game Boy Micro, my original Game Boy Advance, and my Game Boy Advance SP, it's going to be the SP every day. Because it's just a better design. I mean, it does have some flaws with the shoulder buttons. They're kind of weird on them, but it's backlit. It's got a decent sized screen. It can play both the Game Boy Advance and the entire Game Boy library. So you've got all of that. So if you're looking for a way to play, while this is neat to have, the way to go is going to be the SP for sure, because you can get all the benefits out of it.
Having not used that, my personal preference is the older model DS that can play Game Boy Advance games and DS games. It's larger like this, so my hands aren't cramping trying to hold it, which I've noticed with older controllers and smaller controllers. So for me, it's the bigger one. Plus, I can also play DS games on there.
Which someday I'm going to do a review of my DS that I have, because again, another funny story with
Yes,
that.
there's a story.
Because one, it's pink. So say what you may with that, but it is a pink DS. But no, we'll get some close-ups so you can see kind of a comparison of this versus the others, and then just what the screen looks like and kind of the quality. And then, like I said, if you buy one of these, just note, it's a neat novelty to have. It does work, it does play games, and it's definitely portable, more portable than everything else. It's just little small, little small for the hands.
So the screen is definitely smaller, right?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah. Same proportions, though, I assume, or similar anyway.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah.
So between I know we're off topic here from these, but between these two, are the screens the same size, or are they different?
Actually, I think they're the same size.
Okay.
And like I said, this one's just backlit. Unfortunately, I do not have the charger for this. Actually, it is on. There you go. So, actually kind of surprised it powered on at all.
You're in the red. Might not power on for very long.
I know I don't have the charger for that. I got to order it for it. But yeah, again, problem with that is that proprietary charger. That's going to be a talking point of one of our podcasts. Is one of the things that I'm glad everything has moved away from is proprietary chargers, and now
well, Apple's still trying to hold out, but I think a ruling in the EU courts, though, is going to force them to go with. It's going to force all the cell phones sold in the EU to go something all the way across the board, which I'm assuming is going to be USB, because that's what 90% of them use. But
I even think some of the iPhones now are going USB-C.
Well, if they do, that's why. It's because of the EU's, because they're not going to have a factory that's making two sets of iPhones, one to ship to the US, one to ship to the EU, just with different text. I say that they probably actually would do that, but
yeah, because you can get a little bit of money extra for that charger.
They got to pay for those suicide nets on the factories, so.
All right, so we're gonna give you a.
All right, Jim. I won't talk about the suicide nets on the factory. I get the hint.
All right, gosh. I'm here getting ready to, go into the joys of the up-close shots of this, and that's what we get into with. So, anyways, let's get our close-up shots of this, and that way you can see what the screens look like and a couple of games playing on them. All right. So the first one here I've got is playing Metroid Fusion. And as you can hear, if you can even hear, the speakers on these aren't very loud, but the colors and the brightness is really good. And then here's one playing, I believe, Pirates of the Caribbean, one of the few on that. Again, the brightness and the color and everything's pretty good, but the speakers on these do definitely have maybe need a little help. Maybe wearing headphones with these would probably be a little bit better than the speakers on them. But yeah, this is a copy of Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest. And then just a quick comparison there, so you can kind of see compared to the two different previous models of the Game Boy Advance. You can see that, I mean, the screens are definitely considerably smaller, and I don't even say I have giant hands, but I mean, again, I don't know, these were designed for people, that have normal size hands, maybe small, tiny hands. But as you can see, there's the size of those, and yeah, that's about it on that. All right, So there you got a close-up look of the two consoles here. Do you have any thoughts on them?
No, just I've never actually played these. I don't even know if I ever actually used one of a regular Advance. I know I used an older. I know that's not an older Game Boy, but it's similar proportions to
Yep.
an older one. I have played those. But yeah, I think I almost entirely skipped the Advance, but I wanted to be able to play the games. So whenever I bought my DS, I made sure it was one that could play them. But yeah, something like this, no, I'd give it a shot as a novelty, but I know I couldn't play it for very long because, like, I've even tried more recently. Like, I think it's the Nintendo Mini. Like, just my right hand just starts cramping up horribly trying to do that. So that's one thing about the Super Nintendo, because I bought Justin's from him, and he had a larger controller because it had like programmable buttons or something, but it had like a clear, like almost like quarter to half inch thick going all the way around it, so it made it a larger controller, so my hands weren't crushed down into it, and so that's why whenever I use my Super Nintendo Mini, I think it's called a Pro controller, so it's bigger and has more buttons, and so that's a concern I have with video games because for whatever reason my hands are starting to cramp up trying to play the tiny ones, so I'm done harping on that. So.
Well, and I know we've talked about the game, all the Game Boy Advance models here, and I wanted to make sure we kind of focused on the Game Boy Micros. But if you do want to see additional videos on the original Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Advance SP, just let us know down in the comments, and if that's the case, we can go review them. I just don't want to talk about them too much because they are kind of a fairly common console. I mean, like I said, 43 million units, and heck, I don't even know what the SP sold. Probably even sold more than that.
Well, I mean, that'd be like I was talking about the Super Nintendo. Doesn't it have some ungodly sales numbers?
It's in the hundreds.
It's hundreds of millions, isn't it? Yeah.
So, yeah, just let us know. And if you do, we can definitely talk about that. I do definitely want to talk about one other Game Boy at some point. I know it's weird to talk about my original Game Boy, but it's because I've got the attachments for it.
Ah, that's probably worthy.
Yeah,
all the random things you can add onto those.
The Game Genie.
Game Genie. Do you have the thing that zooms in the screen and adds and lights up the screen? Like,
yes.
And
has the speakers that fold out on it.
I forgot that.
And with a joystick attachment, where it makes your already heavy brick into even bigger brick.
Kind of like the scene in The Naked Gun. I think it's the first one. Where OJ his character starts off with like a 45. He starts adding stuff to it. By the end, he's got like a howitzer. And just like cranking the turret and blast the hole through the wall.
Pretty much. It was a beast to carry around. So, but anyways, enough rambling on that.
I do want to throw one thing out there, Jim. Sorry.
Oh, come on.
No. It's related to all this. We have debated on trying to go the route of like the Let's Play kind of stuff for video games. Obviously, it'd be kind of difficult with this, but with the consoles, not so much.
But it's not because I've got the Game Boy Advance player that I can put on my GameCube.
Okay, so for Game Boy Advance games, at the very least, we could do something. But if you guys have any interest in anything like that, let us know. Because before we go down that road, we want to know if there's some kind of interest in it.
Because obviously we'd have to purchase the game recording equipment, the game capture stuff.
There's some pieces we'd have to get a hold of. Like I said, it's something Jim brought up one day looking around. He found the thing for it, and we kind of started talking about it. And
I've got a few games to play.
Yeah, I mean,
just a couple.
Yeah, just a few.
Just a few. And yeah, at some point in time when I get the studio set up, we'll just have the wall of games in the back. So,
or until we get a green screen and get a picture of a wall of games, one or the other.
I'm going to use the legitimate screen.
I know, Jim.
All right. Well, anyways, it's that time to do the normal YouTube stuff. The like, comment, share, and subscribe. Smash that like button is what I always hear people say. Smash it.
Yeah, smash it into the ground. Make sure you hit the bell for the notifications.
Yes, but we're not responsible for any damage to your phone for doing such smashing.
No, it's merely a suggestion.
So. Anyways, we'll see you on the next video.
See you folks later.